Yeah, just do 3 claps. They don't have to be at the same time. Just 3 claps, and that way I can see the spike. So get quiet, and then hit me with 3 claps. Thank you.
Got the clap.
Actually, don't think my mic picked that up.
That's fucked up. It's gonna make it really difficult.
All right, who's got the intro?
You.
Welcome to Out of Potions podcast, episode 4, official, live.
Wow. In person.
Going. We got a little bit of a hodgepodge episode today. Maybe all episodes are like that, so maybe that's not too new. I think we're going to kind of start off with sort of what we're playing right now, and then where we want to work to. We'll see if we get there. We want to get into Monster Tamers as a general concept game. Think Pokemon, think Dragon Quest monsters. It sounds like along the way, Xell really wants to talk about Final Fantasy 16. I just recently beat it. Xell's got opinions about it, even though he's never played it. And Warren is in like the early game. So let's kick it off. Where do we, Warren, Mr. Warren Springer, what have you been playing lately?
Oh, shit. What have I been playing lately? Well, I'm playing a lot of something. Baldur's Gate 3. That's it. I'm playing a lot of Baldur's Gate 3. We're still, as you showed me today, I'm still in Act 1. I guess Act 2 starts when you enter they reference it a lot. There's some kind of like shadowed, like plague lands kind of thing, and they reference, and apparently as soon as you get to that is when the game considers you in Act 2. I'm not there yet. I am in love with the game. There's just so much. It's almost too overwhelming at times, where I reached this camp of these, certain kind of dwarves, right? And then I stumbled upon a backside of this camp, aside from, the mission I was pursuing, which was right in front of me, and I was ready to go. And as I'm going this way, it initiates this whole conversation with some cows that leads to a secret entrance to an entire another level of the camp that led to a new opening side quest. I'm just like, how have people beaten this game? Like, I don't understand, unless you just ignored so much. I don't understand how people have beaten this game, because I'm not even in Act 2. Yeah, it's good. It's really good.
What else have you been playing?
Have I been playing anything else? Rocket League here and there as just kind of like a de-stress game. I started New World, but yes. I am level 1. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to think. Nothing else really. That's pretty much all my gaming. I was doing a little bit Dark and Darker. I found myself watching more than I play recently, because it's almost like more fun for me to just watch a streamer I really like while playing Baldur's Gate. But I'm still very much in Dark and Darker. Like if y'all invited me to play, I'd be extremely down. I just since our last recording, it's been pretty much just Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything bad about Baldur's Gate. I wish I had some negativity to throw that way, but I just hear nothing but great things about it.
Why?
There's got to be a hole somewhere. Like, everyone can't fanboy after every new game that's released. It can't be perfect. There's got to be a hole somewhere, but I haven't seen it yet.
God, I've seen at least one hole in that game. But the romance options are really, really vast,
Woo!
God. It's
raunchy.
It is good. It is so good.
It is, they spent a lot of unnecessary detail on the nudity. I mean, you can just strip down anyone into the nothings, and they spared no expense on every nipple hair.
There's a funny thing. Apparently, at some point, there's some kind of circus or something, and you can get a bunch of funny items that are kind of just like bad magical items. And I was seeing one that said, and this is no spoiler, I mean, it says right in the description of it that it'll give you the ability to use Misty Step, which is, if anybody doesn't know, that spell from D&D, but it's essentially just a teleport. in kind of a local area, and you can use a Misty Step, but because of that item, it'll strip you naked when you arrive at your destination. So like you can Misty Step, but you'll be ass naked every time you do it. Like,
oh my god.
One of them was like, this is a flying broom as long as the user has the ability to fly beforehand, like stupid shit like that. There's love in every crevice of this game, and you can really see it. It's just so great.
That's funny. This is completely unrelated, but My Hero Academia has a character that can like go through walls and like go through the floor and things like that.
Yeah.
And he loses his clothes. And ever since that, I've just been thinking like, how do all these movies get away with people just like teleporting and their clothes just conveniently go?
What is his name?
Like
He's actually my favorite character in that show.
Lemillion.
That's it. I love that guy. Yeah, it's funny things like that, man. It's I was really worried going into the game because me and Red had talked about it beforehand, and he ended up picking a Warlock because they base their damage off of Charisma, which in most games, as you know, allows you more dialogue options to like talk your way out of situations and stuff like that. And I found that even though I don't have high Charisma, this game still gives me so many fun dialogue options to still weasel my way out of situations in interesting ways, based being on a ranger. I'll get ranger specific stuff constantly. I'll get like because I have such a high nature stat, like I get special stuff with that. Like every stat is factored into like how this would affect the situation and allow you to talk your way or get your way out of it or into it. It's just I don't get how they did it. I don't get it. It's magic.
It is it's incredibly impressive game, in just scope and breadth and quality and detail, virtually every regard. I mean, probably a guaranteed game of the year. Maybe not guaranteed, but I don't know what's gonna beat it.
I saw some good contenders.
What have you been playing, Xell?
Oh man, so I'm gonna include the games I've been playing and the games I've been watching because I spend a lot of my time watching my wife play games. But I've been playing a ton of Dark and Darker and New World recently. Having a great time with New World and still getting a lot of fun out of Dark and Darker. I've been kind of like basing my gaming days around starting with Dark and Darker for a couple hours and then rotating over to New World, and it's been really enjoyable. Watching wise, my wife just played through all of Final Fantasy X, which was amazing to watch.
Yes.
And she started off in the beginning really not liking it, and by the end she loved it. She said the story was probably the best of any game she's ever played. So it was really cool to see someone. Sorry, go ahead.
I want to revisit that here after you're done.
Okay, yeah. I was going to say it was really cool to see someone start Final Fantasy. You know, that game was made in like 1998 or something too. Like, it was the remastered one, but still. And watch someone just like that knew nothing about Final Fantasy and had no real love for it, just like fall in love with the game. It was a cool experience to be a part of. And then yesterday, or the day before, she started up Fae Farm, which is like a new Animal Crossing type farming game, which is actually really cute, and I've been having fun watching her play that as well.
This does look cute. Is it more Animal Crossing or more like Harvest Moon adjacent? Like in the way that like Animal Crossing is very much. There's not much depth when it comes to like forming relationships with the characters in the town. It's kind of just like, hey man, can you give Steve my shirt? And then you give Steve his shirt, and he's like, thanks, dude. Here's a bucket that looks like a butterfly. And it's more about like gathering those things so you can kind of adjust the aesthetic of your town, your house, stuff like that. Whereas Harvest Moon and Stardew are more about like scripted moments with characters and stuff.
Yeah, I would say more Harvest Moon then. I don't know a ton about those games, but you build relationships with characters, you can marry characters, so there's cool. Like
yeah, screenshots
much more interaction.
Really cool.
I would say I don't know anything about Fae Farm, but Palia came out not that long ago, and it's of that same vein of like kind of a I think of it like an MMO Animal Crossing in a sense, but they like took out all the terrible parts of Animal Crossing and just made them better. there's actually like, real world there's just open world like interactions with other players, like farming, all this kind of stuff. And I feel like that whole genre is like starting to kind of really emerge. I think Animal Crossing like New Horizons like reawoken an entire like sleeping gaming player base, and now like all the other genres are starting to like pick up on that, like MMOs. And is Fae Farm MMO?
It's not an MMO, but it is multiplayer, and there's like a lot of emphasis on the multiplayer.
I see.
Palia, I think, got a big update either today or yesterday.
I think that's right. I don't know what it is though. I did dabble in Palia for, I don't know, I probably put like 20 hours into it. Super cool, man. The physics in the game was great. It was a lot like it felt like, I might have already said this. It felt like playing Breath of the Wild mechanically, but with like I'm building a farm type of vibe, I guess.
Yeah. I feel like with development cycles, right? Animal Crossing came out right when like COVID hit, so like first quarter 2020, something like that. So I feel like looking at like timelines, this seems correct for when we just start seeing this flood of similar games based on its popularity, because New Horizons had to have been like leagues beyond the popularity of any installment from Animal Crossing, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like New Leaf was huge because of that whole like Street Pass era, the amazing era of 3DS.
Mm-hmm.
That was New Leaf, right? Yeah, I had to Leaf.
Yeah, I think it was.
But this one is just really transcended to like people that don't play video games. Even just, I mean, everybody was all about it. So it's not surprising to see these other ones cropping up, and I'm all about it. I love Animal Crossing just for, if nothing else, nostalgia. But I've always liked I guess it kind of falls in the life sim genre of games. I want to see.
Yeah.
I want to see more.
There's a Nintendo Direct tomorrow, and I know people are hoping that there's going to be some kind of like New Leaf, either like remaster or update or something like that. I don't know if it's based on anything other than Hopium, but maybe. I wouldn't be surprised though if some kind of new Animal Crossing thing comes down the line, because they stopped updating New Horizons, didn't they?
Yeah, I think the last update they had dropped wasn't the last update, like the last actual content update, the one when they brought in the coffee shop and whatnot. It's one of those things where people seem disappointed, but it's like, hey man, Animal Crossing was never built to be like this live service game that keeps adding content. Like, you guys are just playing it so much that you're now expecting that, and the devs are probably sitting there shitting their pants being like, that's not what we fucking planned for, man. We've given you probably more than we planned to in the first place based on the popularity, but you know how fans are of literally anything.
I actually don't like anything. I'm a fan of nothing.
Samesies.
I know.
Greg, what have you been playing?
Yeah, a lot of Baldur's Gate 3. Could not sing higher praises of that game. I think the only people that wouldn't like it is people that just straight up don't like RPGs. It's got your turn-based combat. It's got your character development. You can get real fucking weird with it, or you could just face roll it. Like, there's so many different ways to play it. It's just so well done, so well crafted. Been playing a crap ton of New World. So ever since they announced the expansion dropping, I think it's October 3rd, New World's coming out with an expansion. They're adding mounts. They're shaking up the meta, shaking up the perks, shaking up the way the game just works in general. That was an unfortunate rhyme.
I really liked it though. I thought it was cute.
I'm a rapper.
Oh my god, I know. He's finally coming out with this public.
I'm coming out. Can't wait for New World's expansion to come out. So yeah, I'm playing a shit ton of that, just kind of trying to get ready for it, leveling up my weapons and everything. Let's see. Besides that, I beat Final Fantasy 16 finally. Took me a while. I don't know. I probably played it like once a week for a few hours here and there. But finally got there. I wish I had my PlayStation nearby. I could look at like my how long it took. Unfortunately, I actually have no idea how many hours it took, but I would guess somewhere around like 60, maybe.
Yeah, I want to say around 70 is what the time to play website showed, because I'd looked that up like early when the game came out, or time to beat. So that's probably accurate.
I wrote a very robust review of the game. Obviously all my opinion, all my own, like in a vacuum experiences of it. I put it in our Discord, which, by the way, go check out our Discord. Follow our socials. So yeah, if you're interested in what I thought about Final Fantasy 16, it's there.
Yeah.
Is there any way we could entice you to share it here?
Share what?
My thoughts of FF16?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can give like the TLDR. Overall, absolutely stunning game visually. I enjoyed playing it for the most part. I became very critical of the game towards the end. It did some stuff that I thought was it was just like very out of character for Final Fantasy, in my opinion, which was there was no like secret bosses. We talked about this on an earlier episode, but like the equipment system in the game was like very, very shallow and awkward and really felt like an afterthought. I liked the combat at first, but towards the end it started to feel stale to me. It felt like, it's very much like an action based game, but I'm not sure that they did it super, super well, or at least the way I was doing it didn't feel super, super great. So like all in all, I think I gave it like 7 out of 10, if I recall. I'm glad to have beaten it because I love Final Fantasy, but I don't think I would replay it. It didn't feel like it has like the replayability of other Final Fantasies to me, especially with like a lack of things to do, like secrets to uncover. I mean, I did every quest, I did every side quest, I crafted every item, and it was all just very like A to B to C to D. So a little bit of a letdown, but not too bad.
Almost sounds like the read we kind of had early on, or at least I did, was that it felt like they had a non-Final Fantasy story they wanted to tell and tried to package it in Final Fantasy, and when they realized that maybe it wasn't enough Final Fantasy, they started like trying to add systems. Like, do you feel like, having gotten to the end, that like the gear system even had to exist, or could it have probably just not, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely not. It really, I mean, I'm of the belief that it actually legitimately was like an afterthought in the game. Like it was a system implemented like late, because it's not impactful. It's not an impactful thing. So you described it really well on like our episode 0, I think it was, where it's like basically every piece of gear, that's just like every 20 minutes you can go and get a new sword, and that new sword's like extra +2 attack, and like that's literally it. There's no classes, there's no like weapon variety of any kind. It's like you've got one-handed sword, and in 20 minutes you're going to get a different one-handed sword, and it's going to do +2 more damage, and then you'll do that over and over again.
Ugh. Yeah, I'm still gonna play through, and I'll give my thoughts when I do. It's just one of those ones that too many other great games started cropping up that I didn't want to continue playing the good game. So if it had been a dead season that didn't have Tears of the Kingdom into Baldur's Gate, into just all this other stuff, I'd probably be keeping up with it better. But I still plan to get around to it. I just kind of fell off. I feel like it's a game that, going into it, I'd want to dedicate at least a couple hours each time I play it, and I just couldn't, at least at the time, do that. But yeah, with that, Xell, you were bringing up this IGN article, which is on the surface appears to be about Final Fantasy 16. That is the way it's presented. But this is why we were calling it maybe some clickbait, because this is the title of this IGN article. It says Square Enix loses nearly $2 billion in value since Final Fantasy 16, which would make you think, oh shit, like, okay, this is about Final Fantasy 16. The article does talk, about it a little bit. It says it plummeted 30% since Final Fantasy 16 came out in June. It sold 3 million copies in launch week. It sparked debate whether or not it met targets, yada yada. But basically, the issue with that is that not only are you're only selling this kind of niche game, sales number wise, to a even smaller pocket audience, with only going with PS5 exclusive. Like, you're shooting yourself in the foot. I think they're working on PC release, which will no doubt help. But I think that alone affected that probably heavily, on top of it just being, a fine game in a sea of extremely good games. This has been like one of the best years in gaming.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I agree.
So just kind of unfortunate for it, I guess, there. But then,
well, what's the point Xell was going to make about the article, though? Like, why did you want to bring up the article?
Well, I just thought, first of all, I thought it was interesting that it came out today. But yeah, obviously the article's clickbait. Everything on the internet's clickbait, right? You can't watch a single YouTube video without some dude having a giant O face like he just found some secret discovery, and everything's clickbait. So reading the article, though, he does bring up an interesting point that the stocks have been down. So I actually looked it up, and the stocks, and it could be coincidence, and it most likely is, but the stocks are now the lowest they have been since the launch of FF16. It's down by, I think, about $20 per stock. It was roughly $50 earlier in the year, and it's down to about $30 now. And they make some points in the article that it sounds like the CEO has caught wind that the direction they're going is not the direction they should be going, and it sounds like there's a pretty big revamp coming. So I don't know. It's kind of exciting, because if that has any truth to it at all, it kind of sounds like they might be recognizing that the direction they're going is not the one that the true hardcore fans are looking for.
That's the kind of thing like this. Like, with an article like this, it's such a short article boasting such a big thing, and it says in here, Square has this new CEO, Takashi Kiryu, who intends to reduce the number of smaller games in the works to focus on big-budget games that have a greater chance of making an impact on the bottom line. And then the next sentence says, Square Enix declined to comment. It's like, okay, so where's your source on that? Maybe it's down here. I don't know how IGN works. Maybe if I scroll, I'll find it. But above that, it literally said, according to a report from Bloomberg, they had a profit decline since August, but they also had, which I didn't realize, Marvel's Avengers, which was a flop, and then Forspoken, which was a big budget flop. So everyone wants to talk about 16, which did, underperformed their expectations, but still didn't do bad, and people still enjoyed it. Compare that to Forspoken, which, for everything I've heard, people actively disliked, and it hemorrhaged money. So it's it seems like the meat of their issues wasn't in Final Fantasy 16 specifically. I don't think FF16 is the one tanking Square.
FF16, I think it sold. I think it didn't sell as great as they hoped, but it sold well. They are in a lot of pain from that Avengers game, which, by the way, right? What Avengers game?
Yeah.
And
I had no idea.
And also, Forspoken was a massive Square Enix flop. I don't know if you guys followed that at all. But basically, Square Enix was in a real bad place, and then Final Fantasy 16 came, and I think they were hoping Final Fantasy 16 was going to save them. I don't think it's quite saved them, but it's doing well. So the clickbait of this article is to falsely lead you to draw the conclusion that since Final Fantasy 16 came out, because of Final Fantasy 16, Square Enix stock is dropping. No, Square Enix stock was free falling, and then Final Fantasy 16 came out, and it didn't stop the free fall.
Doesn't that kind of say a lot, though?
I mean, I think that puts a lot of expectation and hope on Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah, like undue pressure on one of the titles, like lack of faith in their other stuff.
It's a fallacy to draw the conclusion that it's because of Final Fantasy 16. But yeah, what Final Fantasy 16 didn't do is pull them out of that hole. You know, so I guess that's all I would really say about.
And that said, that they're gonna get pulled out of the hole because the next FF7 installment's coming. It's gonna be huge.
Remake part 2.
It's one of those too big to fail ones. Like I don't think the FF name is too big to fail, but 7 specifically is.
Oh yeah, no, that game's
just
gonna be amazing.
straight up. I actually, Red was talking about wanting to go back and playing it. Go back and play it. I haven't played it yet.
Wait, what?
I haven't played FF Remake.
Wow,
that's crazy.
I mean, I didn't really. I never beat 7 as a kid. I beat it later in life, maybe like 10 years ago. And I hadn't replayed it since. So it's not like, a mainstay. It's not in my top 50 games just because it's one that, I mean, maybe it is I've never ranked them, but I'm saying like, it's not one I think of when you're like, list your favorite games, because it's just not one. It's one I liked, but it's not one that was really formative for me, based on the, my age compared to people in my age group that, definitely did play it.
Would you go back and play it now?
Yeah. Actually, I have it on my Switch. I didn't play far back into it, but I did give it a shake, maybe like a year ago or something like that. But I think I'm just gonna, instead of like trying to force myself to play that before playing Remake, I'm just gonna jump into Remake and then enjoy, Intergrade and Rebirth when that happens.
Yeah, I was gonna say it'd be interesting to hear what your opinion is on old school FF7 not having like that nostalgia love for it.
Oh, it's still a masterpiece. If you're expecting anything other than that, I recognize that, especially for when it came out and what it was. I think a massive piece of it is that the writing, the story is like amazing. The combat, like there is, I don't know. I think we may have talked about that on our Zero episode, but like there isn't a piece of FF7 that isn't iconic.
Yeah.
From music, character, story, all of it, every single facet of that game is iconic, and there's a reason for that. But just the only thing that I don't have with it is the nostalgia.
Well, if you play through it, man, let us know, because it'd be really cool to just hear like your real time, reaction and response to playing
Remake.
Well, either, but I think especially playing the original. Like if you go back and play the original in 2023 for, quote unquote the first time, that would be interesting. But you should play the remake too, because the remake's great.
Listen, I played FF7. Okay. just don't remember all of it.
Xell, you said that your wife just went through and beat Final Fantasy X, and you said she didn't like it at first, and then she grew to love it. Was that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about that. What happened there? Because that's really, really interesting to me.
Yeah, so I think I set up her expectations incorrectly. I made the mistake of introducing her to her first Final Fantasy as Final Fantasy XIV, which she really liked. Mm. So I think the entire time we've been talking about Final Fantasy, she's assumed that they were all like 14. Mm. And so when I pitched 10 to her, she started playing it and she immediately got hit with turn-based combat, and she was like, oh, I didn't know this was turn-based. I was like, yeah, that's like what our whole podcast episode is about, how all these Final Fantasies are turn-based and the new ones aren't. So the first night she was like kind of like iffy on it, and then the next day she started leaning into the story and the characters, and then there was even a couple nights where I just like caught her grinding by herself, like unprompted, and I was like, this is the dream, dude. This is the dream. But I mean, yeah, she got attached to the characters, and she loved the story. She said the story was literally one of the best stories she's played.
So good.
It was so good, and she even got into the sphere grid, which I didn't think she was gonna be into. But yeah, she leaned into that and really liked it. And I think her main complaint about the game, which I didn't remember this, but the battles are extremely frequent, and they don't have a way for you to there's no repel or anything in 10. So you have to go into the battle, watch the whole animation, and then you have to flee, and that's your only way to avoid battles.
That's interesting. There's not a setting for it, because almost all remakes of old school RPGs now have an option in there that's avoid combat or something like that. Because people understood that now in a modern lens that shit's fucking awful and should be avoided.
She kept trying to do the puzzles, and then she'd get hit with 3 battles between grabbing one of the spheres and putting it at another wall, and she's like, I can't remember where this came from.
Can we talk about that? Listen, I love FF10 as much as the next guy that loves FF10, but can we all agree that those Una trials were the worst shit on the fucking planet?
Hard disagree.
Hey, enter this pure blue room. Okay, now walk around for 30 fucking minutes just dropping spheres into holes. Is this good? You having fun yet, son? You're like, no, man. This blows dick.
No, those were great puzzles, man. They were fucking great. You had to use logic and intuition to say okay, I have a destruction sphere. Where would this make sense to place it to destroy something? And that was how you do those puzzles.
I mean, I understand how they work. It just doesn't, being logical and challenging doesn't also mean fun. At least for me, I fucking hated them.
I thought they were fucking great. I loved those things. And there's secrets in them too, which is something Final Fantasy 16 was massively lacking. But yeah,
If Final Fantasy 16 fucking walked me into a room and it was just full of balls and holes and they're like, hey man, are you fucking ready? I'd be like, this is now, I understand why you fail and I'm actually rooting for you to fail harder.
tell me how you beat Final Fantasy 10 then, but not 16.
I haven't beat. Wait, what? What do you mean?
I mean, you put 10... a lot more time into 10 than you put into 16.
Yeah, man, it was easier to please when I was fucking 12. But also, I'm getting to 16. Okay, it's just
you
time.
are.
If you're arguing that the success of Final Fantasy X is due to the sphere ball grid, I'm gonna scream.
I'm saying it's all of it contributing.
It's all of it. That's part of it. People love the sphere balls.
I will say, and I've thought about this since episode 1, and Warren, I would love to. I'm going to attack you here, but for all of your dismissal of the combat system, you have not completed a single Final Fantasy that was not turn-based.
There's not that many that aren't. No. What do you mean?
There's 2. There's 2. Yeah, I mean.
Okay. I will say that if there's anything that pulls me through Final Fantasy 16, it'll probably be the combat because that's the mechanic of the game I'm enjoying the most.
More than the story?
Yeah, the story's fine. Even in the early hours, maybe it doesn't get this way, but it's predictable. It's okay. I'm enjoying the themes and the setting, but we'll see. I have a more generous read on it when I'm done, I guess.
Yeah, it evolves.
No, you're right. But I haven't... I mean, I didn't play... Let's see. I played 11. I played 14. I haven't played 7 Remake, but that was because I was waiting for a sale and then other games happen and it just kind of falls to the wayside.
I guess there's 3, yeah.
But there's no... It's turn-based isn't the thing that kept me in Final Fantasy. Turn-based, thinking about the combat, is never the driving factor of me booting back up FF9 every 2 years to play through it again. It's like every other piece of the game.
So I'm really glad that Xell decided to 360 dunk on you there, because it reminded me that this kept escaping me, and I don't know why it did, but we can return this 360 dunk back to Xell.
Oh my god,
Xell, for the exact same point you just made. As much as you rave about turn-based systems and how much you love them, I don't think you've played or have enjoyed a single turn-based game that's come out since Final Fantasy X. And in fact, I think you've actively said on every turn-based game since then, it's too slow for me. It's too slow. It's too slow. It's too boring.
Drag him.
All right, let me. That could be true. Let me.
He's
think.
bringing up a list of turn-based games. I had to have beaten one of these, man.
Because we brought up Baldur's Gate 3, and one of the first things you called out was like, yeah, no, that's going to be too slow for me, too boring, and it's turn-based combat. And I started thinking to myself like, all right, like all these great like turn-based combat games that come out, you know, Octopath Traveler, you know, all these other things, and it's like
Chained Echoes, fucking.
I think every time you've said it's too slow and it looks too boring for me, and then you play things like Dark and Darker, where you can kind of just like schizo run around with a knife.
Yeah, I don't. So my knee-jerk reaction is not to attribute that to combat, but it very well could be. It could be the turn-based combat. My issue with those games is like the story. Like I'm just not a big story guy, and a lot of these RPGs are so story dense that I just like I lose traction. What was the Switch game we were playing, Ryan, that we really liked? It was like
That was Bravely Default 2.
Yeah, so that game, for example, I spent 79 of my 80 hours literally just grinding.
Yeah.
I think.
And
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think that's your issue, is that you're upset that these turn-based RPGs, which is like the story is like supposed to be the thing that everyone falls in love with. You're like you want some kind of turn-based game that doesn't have story, and it's like, well, did those exist? Like, does a turn-based combat game exist that isn't story-driven? Like in the turn-based, like, you know, FF7, early FF games, kind of turn-based. As an example, not like Baldur's Gate where it's like tactics. I mean, there's 1,000 tactics games that don't. XCOM, again, that's tactics. I'm just responding to somebody tried to bring one up in chat, and I appreciate that. We have a chat. We're live, by the way. Hi.
I do like tactics. That feels they like deliver the story during combat a lot in like Final Fantasy Tactics, which yeah, I don't know. Another example to kind of defend my point here is like Skyrim, for example.
Yeah.
I would argue that Skyrim's combat is very similar to Dark and Darker.
I actually had that same sentiment like while playing. I'm like, dude, this kind of feels like the way it would to fucking.
Didn't you hate
Yeah.
Skyrim's combat?
Well, I hated Skyrim.
Xell.
Yeah, I didn't love Skyrim's combat, but Skyrim died for me because there was just so much story and the world was like so open. It was just like so daunting to be like, I have to talk to all these townspeople, and yeah, that. So it's like.
That's the point.
The story.
Why did you even buy the game? That's the whole thing. That's like their whole.
I bought it for the hype. Yeah, I'd never played an Oblivion game before that.
I don't know what it is you like in a game. It's
Me neither. Dude.
It's
hard,
like-
it's
it's like,
harder
I don't-
harder to find.
it's like I don't think you want any of the game. Like you just want the physics of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like strip away everything. I don't want any of the story. I don't want anything to happen. Like I just want to like that like 30-minute segment of a game where like you're set free for the first time. Like that's the part that you want, and you want that 30 minutes over and over again.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. Like Hood Outlaw and Legends, for example. It's like I could really crave that like short deathmatch style, you know, just combat.
I was gonna say, you're like, I didn't like Skyrim. I didn't engage with it, and it's like, well, yeah, man, you weren't fighting people. As soon as you took that combat and attributed it to a multiplayer game, like, oh yeah, you're on board. I think you just don't. What single player games like? What are your top like single player games?
If I had to list them off the top of my head, I would say probably FF7, FF9, and then Breath of Fire, something like that.
It's so different than like what you would pick up and play today.
Yeah, I mean, I occasionally go back and like play those three, but
So how fueled by nostalgia is that?
I mean, going back and playing those probably quite a
I was
bit.
gonna say for like FF7, like again, you're like, I don't like these games. Like playing Skyrim, you're like, this is all story, and it's like, now do you like FF7 because the story is so good? But it's just like, that's still all story. I mean, when you're not doing combat, it is just chat bubble after chat bubble after chat bubble.
Yeah, and it's weird because I want to listen to the story of FF16, but I don't want to play it. Like I'd really want like a YouTube compilation of all the cutscenes and like the story, but
That's fair.
I don't have an interest
That's
in
fair.
playing through it.
Which you should, by the way, because it was a great story and the visuals. Like, man, I want you to see some of those cutscenes, dude. So if you're not gonna play the game, fine, but like at least find some YouTube video that's gonna cut it up and show it to you all.
Yeah.
I will for sure.
Yeah, we're kind of. Yeah, we often during that last conversation we're talking about like turn-based, and then we kept bringing up tactics games, and I feel like those are two different things, right?
Yeah, they
Because
are.
like saying, because you'd say like what games don't have story, and then like someone brought up XCOM, or like we were talking about different tactics games, and it's like, well, no, those are a different thing. Like there's a tactics game called Into the Breach that I love. It's on Switch. I think it's on everything. But yeah, there's no story in that game. It's straight up just jump map to map and mechs versus bugs kind of thing. But as far as turn-based goes, I don't know if there's. I don't think I could think of a literal one example.
It's funny that you brought up tactics. So Colonel Regis was talking about how much he loved Final Fantasy Tactics the other night when I was talking to him, and then he told me, he was like, yeah, it was like one of my favorite games on Game Boy SP or Advance or whatever it was, and I was like, you're talking about, yeah, I know. I was like, you're talking about Tactics Advance. And he's like, yeah. I was like, dude, that's not Final Fantasy Tactics. I mean, like, it was a Final Fantasy Tactics, but that's not like the Final Fantasy Tactics. Final Fantasy Tactics was a Final Fantasy, a PlayStation 1 game. So,
oh man, if he hasn't played that, he is in for a treat.
That's what I told him. I was like, dude, you need to like either emulate it, or if you have a PlayStation 1, whatever you've got, or download it on something. Like the original Final Fantasy Tactics on PlayStation 1 was such an experience.
Oh, beautiful game.
Did you play it?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Oh man.
And I love tactics games, and I love Final Fantasy. Just it wasn't one that I owned.
Oh man.
I don't think we're gonna be able to talk about Tamers unless we cut, reinitiate, because we're 50 minutes deep.
Are we really?
That's the way it goes.
I say throw it in there.
Throw Tamers in?
I say we just go for it. It's up to you guys.
I'm fine with going for it. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Let's just dive right into Tamers. So, I think we're all big fans of various Tamers, right? From Pokemon to Dragon Warrior, Monster Rancher, that 1,000 different ones.
I will boldly state that I think Tamers is my favorite genre of games.
Interesting.
Ooh,
Would you be interested to know? I did a little research leading up to this topic. So it looks like the first Tamer was Shin Megami Tensei. It was
I
called
would believe that.
It was called Megami Tensei just by itself, like just that, and then when it released internationally, but that shit came out like 4 years before Pokemon, something like that. And another game that predates Pokemon that I think you could argue was the birth of like Dragon Warrior Monsters, like that spinoff, was Dragon Quest V, which was all about taming creatures in the wild and adding them to your party, which also predated Pokemon. So I think that it was probably like someone, at the Pokemon company was very smart to get that angle towards children. They put out that story because I watched like some, like not side by side, but I watched stuff from Dragon Warrior or Dragon Quest V, and it was like extremely on the nose. And then is the same thing with Shin Megami Tensei.
Yeah.
Pokemon came out, blew up. The rest was history. I think the cutesy kind of nature of Dragon Warrior Monsters versus Dragon Quest was probably a response to that. So I think everything after that was definitely chasing that, but just thought it was interesting that it wasn't necessarily the first one.
Yeah, I don't know if I've like ever looked into the timeline, but it definitely makes sense to me. I've, I think I've probably played the most amount of Monster Taming games between the three of us, including I've played the Shin Megami Tensei series, which has its own like spin on Monster Taming. Which, by the way, birthed the Persona series as a spin-off of Shin Megami Tensei,
Yeah,
much like Dragon Warrior Monsters was a spin-off of Dragon Quest. And so the Persona games are super like encrusted in my heart as these incredible monster taming games. I couldn't rave about them hard enough, which I think they're doing a remaster of the third one coming out here. Couldn't be more excited for that. I think that's coming out either later this year or early next year. There's a lot of different directions we can take this. I don't even like before I start getting crazy, where do you guys want to go?
Let me start just because I have the least, I think, amount of experience in all these kind of games. I was obviously right in the heyday of Pokemon Red and Blue. Mm-hmm. My parents didn't believe in fads, so I didn't get it until Yellow dropped, and then I was able to get a copy of Blue shortly after. So my first Pokemon game, I guess, was Yellow. And yeah, I mean, I loved it. There's a reason that Pokemon is the literal biggest media franchise on the planet. I mean, there's I don't think anything comes close. Like above Disney, Marvel, everything. It's number one, and it's just ingrained in. I think I was bigger into the cards, honestly, than the games. I love the games. My favorites were, Gold was my favorite, and then I fell off after that. Never got really into one following that. I think I only ever played your copy of Dragon Warrior Monsters. I don't think I ever had my own. Never owned it. And then I'm trying to think. I had Digimon World on PS1. Great game, but I don't think I ever really dove into any. I've picked up the stray Pokemon game here and there. Like I got like Pokemon Black, I got Sword, but I've never gotten probably past the third gym on any of the later entries.
You're pissing me off so much, Xell. You need to take over.
Yeah, honestly,
I'm so triggered.
I think all the newer ones are just kind of shitty. So that's all I'm saying.
Oh man, let me stifle my rage. Yeah, so I've played my fair share. I'd say I probably have bought a Pokemon from every generation that they created and played through the majority of it. Actually, usually when a new Pokemon releases, Red will grab the opposite one of me, and he usually comes over and we just land at my house, and the wife gets in on it. We just play Pokemon for 3 months straight. But
such good times.
Yeah, it's a really fun experience when when they release 2 games and then like you and a friend get each of them, and there's like a reason to trade, and like you can do lots of fun stuff with it to not make it so simple, because Pokemon can be a little simple.
Yeah, but unfortunate.
It's a kids game, so for babies. Only babies play this kids game. No, I don't think.
Going into the way that we play Pokemon though is like we get the opposite one, and then you and I are very like over the top about no spoilers, right? So like we'll sit in a vacuum with no spoilers, no extra influence, and just like discover the new generation like in real time together, and it's a lot of fun.
That's cool. That does sound fun. Yeah, I think a big thing with me in those games is that I like some story if I'm doing RPG kind of games. And Pokemon's is generally like, oh my god, like you're out for the first time and you're 10. Like it's never deep. It's like, what's the Team Rocket this time? So I think that's why it's never quite hooked me. Like I actually tried really hard with Pokemon Sword, but
Sword was so good. Damn, man, that game really opened up a lot. Xell, you didn't play. I didn't either. But there was a generation after Sword. I actually can't even remember the name of it. Whatever this.
Crimson?
Pikachu Go and Eevee Go or something like that?
No,
Are you talking
what
about
the
that?
fuck? That came out way
he's
before.
He's talking about the
Oh.
what, Crimson and something, right?
Yeah, Crimson
and Scarlet?
Scarlet
and
Violet. Yeah,
There it
there
is.
you go. Jesus, we sound like boomers. Is it Crimson?
I hear some kind of red.
In the computer?
Yeah, the files. Yeah, we didn't even play the newest generation, which is a little bit of a disappointment. But I will say, fuck, I love Pokemon games, yes, but Monster Taming games, and the biggest. Pokemon's not perfect. Pokemon, it falls short in a lot of ways, and I think where it really falls short is for its kind of like, I don't want to say pro gamers, we're not pro gamers, but like, your non-children audience. Pokemon does a huge disservice to them, I think, which is super unfortunate. And I know, Pokemon's for kids. Is it though? Is it? Pokemon came out to millennials when we were all 10 years old. Now we're all 30 and we still love Pokemon. So like, serve us. But there's been a lot of other companies that have kind of like stepped in to try to sort of fill that role and fill that void. There's indie type of Monster Tamer games. Like Xell and I recently played a game called Cirillum, which was mobile only, which is kind of awkward, but it very much attempts to like give a more adult take on a monster taming genre. And I wish more companies would jump on this, because the monster taming gameplay formula I think is phenomenal. Just mature it, and I think it's just a pot of gold.
Is that not what Shin Megami Tensei is kind of doing though?
Shin Megami Tensei does do that, and so the Persona series I think does that very well. The thing with the Persona series is, so they've got this monster taming, they've got their really robust fusion system, one of the best fusion systems, actually maybe the best fusion system I've ever seen for any kind of monster taming game. The other piece that you have to take with Persona, which I like but not everyone will, is it's very much like a life simulator also. So you've got this like monster taming side, and then you've got this, I'm this character and I'm role playing, and you're building relationships, and you're going through like several hours of non-combat, character development type stuff, which it's great for an RPG player. I think the Persona games are pretty highly regarded amongst their audience, but they can be a little niche.
Yeah, it kills the whole series for me. Like having this like daytime phase where you're this kid that has to go to high school and like take classes. Oh, it's just the worst thing.
What's funny is I was shouldn't you love Shin Megami Tensei then? Isn't that like Persona is just, that's the piece that they added to that puzzle, right? So shouldn't
I've never played.
SMT be like more of your bag, because it's just like, a more adult version of Pokemon with, I'm obviously it's reductive, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I've never played it.
Me either.
Yeah, I've heard of them, but yeah, never got into them.
Yeah, you guys might like those. They're difficult. They're hard, which is great. I think I played a lot of the latest Shin Megami Tensei that had come out. I didn't beat it, but I was playing it on the hardest difficulty, and it was brutal. It was like grueling. But it has it has a fusion system, like in a monster ability inheritance type system. It's really good. If you ever try it out, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts.
I like turn-based games. I do. But Pokemon was one where the turn-based bit of it, like, it always felt very... I mean, I don't do anything competitive in Pokemon. I've never done PvP in any kind of Pokemon, setting. So as far as the PvE goes, like, you can kind of face roll everything always. Like, as long as you're a high enough level, you kind of just... whatever move your thing does, as long as you make sure that you're doing a water to a fire, you're kind of golden.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that's probably why I stopped engaging with it, is because, like, it never really felt like they added to that, which makes sense because it's a game for babies. But it's just, my dream scenario is, like, if a Pokemon game was... a third-person RPG where you're collecting, and then, like, you throw the ball, and then imagine you toss that ball, and as soon as it pops, now you're, instead of behind your character, you're behind the Pikachu, and it's an action game. Like, you switch to combat like FF16, right? Like, doing, trying to do counterplays with different spells and stuff. And it's like that's the kind of thing I would want to see. I don't think it will literally ever happen. Pokemon makes so much money; they have no reason to ever change their formula. Even with Scarlet and Violet, which had been panned for having like game-breaking bugs that stopped you from being able to enjoy it, it was still like I think the best-selling one they've ever had. You know what I mean? Like I don't see them ever expanding out unless they have to. I think the most expansion we'll see is stuff like what was that other the Legends series that they're trying to
Arceus.
Keep going.
Yeah, Arceus I didn't play a lot of Arceus. I think Xell, you might have played the most, or maybe it was Ashley that played the most. What was your experience with it?
Let me make sure that is the correct one I'm thinking of. That's the one where they went kind of like open world with it, right?
Yeah.
It's
like, you like throw the balls.
Back in the past, and people are still scared of Pokemon. And
yeah, I was actually really disappointed with that one. Which is a bummer because Sword and Shield really opened up their platform and their foundation to expand into something really cool, like this open world experience. And for some reason, ever since Sword and Shield, I feel like they've really just failed. Like,
well,
Eevee and
so I think you're about to touch on essentially spin-offs as the critique. If you haven't played, I will say, like, from what I've heard about Scarlet and Violet, people say it is the best one as far as like mainline games, and I think that's what we can expect. So I think that if you're going to go in trying to critique Pikachu Eevee or the one you literally just mentioned 2 seconds ago, like those are essentially spin-offs. Like if we ever see another game like Let's Go Pikachu Eevee, it's going to probably be called Let's Go something, because those are like, while Pokemon is child's game for babies. I'm joking when I say that, you guys know, but the Let's Go series is even more so a way to be like to show a new kid, like, so my son is the example.
He was talking about Arceus.
So he was about to. Were you not about to talk about the Let's Go series as well, saying that you think it's going in a different direction?
Well, what I was gonna say,
I think they're all
what I was
spin-offs.
gonna say. Yeah, which I actually really appreciate the way Pokemon does that, unlike Final Fantasy, where they just like throw them into the next number and it's like very confusing. I like that Pokemon separates them out, but Sword and Shield, correct me if I'm wrong, was kind of part of the main lineup, right?
That's mainline.
Yeah. So I think Sword and Shield really opened up a good foundation, and I don't know. I haven't played Scarlet and Violet. I don't know if they continue to build off that, but I just know the games in between there. Yeah. Pikachu, Eevee, Arceus. Those really.
Okay, hold on. You're getting your timeline confused though, because Eevee and Pikachu came before Scarlet and Violet.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah, that was like years ago.
It was like the same year. That's what I'm saying. It was a spinoff.
Yeah, I thought they were close.
I think the next main line after Sword and Shield is Scarlet Violet.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So
anyways. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it goes Sword Shield, Arceus, Scarlet Violet.
Yeah. So, anyways, my point from that was that Sword and Shield, they did it really well. Arceus, they didn't. It was really, really weird open world. The way you engaged with Pokemon and caught them was awkward. Even the battles, like, I don't know. It was like they were trying to expand into a new formula, but they hadn't completely worked it out, and they just like shipped it. It felt really awkward to me.
Yeah, that's kind of the consensus, and I think that's actually what they did. I could be wrong. I think it was a different team. Like, I think they're basically trying to create divergent timelines of different stuff, which I appreciate. I think if there's any game I jumped into now in the Pokemon line, I would bet I would enjoy Arceus more than I would enjoy Scarlet or Violet.
I would believe that, yeah. I think you probably
They're
would.
very different.
No.
I think I didn't play a ton of Arceus. Like, honestly, the tutorial for Arceus was like this locked-in 2-hour experience. And it was so incredibly hard for me to get through. By the time I got through it, I had like 30 minutes in me, and then I just never picked up the game again. But if I recall, I think what they kind of did was sort of move towards more of a live battle type of thing. Is that true? So.
Yeah, kind of. But again, it was like a half-baked idea. Like, it reminded me a lot of like how Final Fantasy VII Remastered did this like half live battle, half turn-based.
Mm-hmm.
And
Stand by,
it
give me
really
1
didn't.
minute. We're live, so I can't pause.
Okay.
Keep talking. 1 minute.
Yeah. Yeah, so it just felt like they hadn't fully baked it out. Like, it was a cool idea, and I think it was moving in like a nice direction, but I think they tried to fall too hard in line with that. You know, we get a new Pokemon game out every 16 months or whatever it is.
Yeah. You know, so maybe while Warren stepped away, this is actually a good time to go into like, we have to touch Dragon Warrior Monsters, right?
Oh, baby. Yeah, actually, I kind of wanted to start, and I know we're too deep in here at this point, but I kind of wanted to know just like what Tamers have we played?
Yeah, good. I mean, good point. So, Pokemon series, of course. You know, I'm not going to list off the whole thing, right? The Persona series, the Shin Megami Tensei series, the Dragon Quest Monster series, aka Dragon Warrior Monsters. And Temtem has to be mentioned too, because I think Temtem did a lot for this series. Temtem made, I think, a lot of... It's the closest to Pokemon, but in my opinion, mechanically better in almost every single way.
Yeah, I really like Temtem, and it might actually be the more mature version of Pokemon that Warren's looking for. It's a bummer that we put it down. I think we started that one together, and then we played for like 3 days, and then we had to like go back to work or something and didn't continue it. But
Yeah.
Did you play Temtem, Warren?
I have an issue. Part of my brain just doesn't accept when I turn a game on and it's like an unapologetic ripoff of something. And when I open Temtem and it's like, "Hi, I'm the professor," and then like, "Here, pick one of these 3 things in these cages," I was just like, I can't do this. I thought it was bringing something else to the table. This is just Pokemon. This is just Pokemon. But now I have to learn if Charmander's name is Scarmander.
It's so that's a very I haven't played the game take. Temtem makes such massive improvements to the Pokemon mechanical formula and how it plays. Most notably, they did away with the PP system. I said PP. And they brought in a stamina system. And also, every battle is locked into 2v2. Which, at surface value, you know, those things, I don't know, maybe they don't sound that different. But for anyone that has, like, played a good amount of Pokemon games, the way the stamina system works is, in Pokemon, you can literally have your eyes closed and face roll the game by picking the 4 strongest abilities, teaching that to your Pokemon, and then pressing them randomly over and over again. Temtem, stronger abilities cost more stamina, and like weaker abilities and status abilities cost less stamina. So you have to like balance using hard hitting attacks and even things like passing your turn strategically, which really, really increased, in my opinion, the engagement of the combat itself. It was a completely fresh take on like turn-based combat in the monster taming world.
Yeah, Warren, you make an interesting point because, I mean, obviously Temtem is kind of a ripoff of Pokemon, right? They're extremely similar at their foundation, but that being a roadblock for, you know, such a good game, it seems like a bummer because like there's so many games that are just better iterations of like the games we know and love that are like direct ripoffs.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm not saying it's a good quality, that it's a turnoff for me, but looking at these, I mean, even the designs is just, like the characters are like 10-year-old kids with the exact same clothing styles as Pokemon. It's just like, hey man, what if we just did Pokemon? Like, I don't know. That's too close. Like that money grubbiness, in my opinion, that I just can't get over. That's
I want to dive into that more.
Yeah, that's
Not,
good.
I was just gonna say I want to dive into that more. Probably not on this episode, but I want to see where that line is because it's interesting.
Yeah, people are saying it's fun. You guys are saying the systems are really good and the mechanics are good and stuff, but I think because that was never the reason I was playing Pokemon, and I realized that's probably why I stopped playing is that, and I haven't bought any more since, is because I'm like, well, you know what? I think I am just continuing to do this because of nostalgia, because I enjoyed it as a kid. I'm not enjoying it as an adult, and I just need to like sit myself down and be like, this is not for you, man. Like, I don't like when Reb was sitting there getting excited, being like, oh man, there's like this new system. They took away PP and added stamina. I'm just sitting here just like, oh, none of that sounds fun. Like, that doesn't sound cool to me at all. Like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying for me, I'm like, I don't give a half a shit. So.
What would make you give a shit about a Monster Taming game, or just you just don't like Monster Taming games?
I might just not like Monster Taming games, but I've liked.
There's not a ton of story. There's not a ton of story in them, and that's really important for you. And also, I think aesthetically, they tend to go for like younger.
I'm okay with the young. I mean, you know, depending on the game, I'm not against that. Animal Crossing is very childlike. I mean, you know, big blocky kind of characters, and Pokemon have always been that way. That wasn't the reason that I turned away from it. I think it's that when you're dealing with that kind of game, yeah, like you're saying, the story, the narrative is going to kind of follow suit with that. You're not going to get anything kind of crazy when it comes to the stories in those. And if I'm playing some 100-hour RPG, there's got to be something there for me. Like, I mean, I know it's not a turn-based game, but like Fire Emblem, Three Houses, I loved that game. But it was not the turn-based part of the game that I was engaging with at all. It was the school side, meeting characters, forming relationships, that kind of stuff. So,
that just makes me think you would love Persona.
Oh no, I know I would. I bought 5 Royal for the Switch when it dropped. I haven't played it yet, just because it you know, it's sitting on a pile of games that are also on the backlog. But it's in there. I'm gonna be kicking it off at some point.
I would pay you to beat that game.
No, yeah, I'm gonna play the shit out of it. And with 4 and 3 coming, 3 is the one, looking at them like side by side, that was actually the one that looked the most interesting to me. I like the whole idea of like that darker kind of like you summon your persona by like shooting yourself in the head, like crazy shit like that. Like, I'm interested.
Hey Google, set a reminder to ask Lauren if he's played Persona 5 in 6 months.
Your credit card number is.
All right, in 6 months, dude. We'll see.
Okay. I bought it.
So
Steelbook.
honorable mention. Oh, did you really? You got like the special edition?
Yeah, I was excited for it. I've been interested to play 5 for a long time, but I knew I was never going to do it on the TV, on the PS5 or anything like that. So when it dropped for Switch, that was my in. I'm like, oh my god, I can take this mobile. Let's go.
There is something about the system being mobile that is just like so enjoyable. Ever since I got the Steam Deck, man, like one of my favorite things to do is to play New World 4 feet away from my PC on the couch and just like farming stuff because I can just lay there and hold
That's
it. It's just
so funny because you do it with controller scheme, right? You would have to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was actually going to bring that up when we were talking about Baldur's Gate, is that among all the other impressive things about that game, I'm so impressed at how well it has been optimized for a controller. And I actually really enjoy, my favorite is to be able to sit at the computer and play it because I have my controller in my lap and I play it with both depending on what I'm doing in the game. And I found I enjoy it a lot more that way. I can play the entire thing with either, but yeah, because I played a lot actually doing Steam Link on my phone. I'll lay in bed with my Backbone controller and I'll play Baldur's Gate. But love that. I love that Steam Deck's working out for you. I might, I think once they eventually come out with like, you know, the second iteration of it, I'll probably pick it up.
I think that's kind of what I'm waiting on too. because the Steam Deck does sound interesting to me also. But I might wait for whatever round 2 of Steam Deck is to see whatever extra bells and whistles they have for it.
Plus, there's a lot of like, ever since it dropped, just recently they've started getting really good competition, which is only going to make the Steam Deck better. So like the ROG Ally came out, and I think it's way more powerful. But it, there's pros and cons between all of them. Like, I don't think that anyone has a definitive like this one is the best of any of them. But the ROG Ally, there was I want to say some other company, not Nvidia, maybe it's something like that, dropped their own as well. So like,
yeah, I've seen that.
There's a lot of it's a really dynamic space in that world right now that I just kind of want to sit back and watch it evolve.
PlayStation's coming out with their own like handheld too, I think, again.
It's just a PS5 controller with a screen in the middle, and it's like only for like your PlayStation games. I don't know. It's I'll do more research on that one to bring to this, but I'm actually pretty sure it's essentially just their way of like being like, you can play your PlayStation on the go, which isn't bad, but for a full price console.
I think just the Switch, I think, kind of broke open this world of, kind of having your console being more portable. Well, I mean, the Switch wasn't the first to do it, right? Like, there was PlayStation Portable before, which was, I don't know, I guess a competitor of like the Game
PSP
Boys.
was DS era, kind of against each other. I had a PSP. I loved my PSP.
I did too, man.
Love my PSP.
I played the shit out of that thing.
And people will die for the Vita, like being one of the greats as well.
I still have my Vita.
Often forgotten, but people love the PS Vita. Yeah.
But before we get too off track, though, on Monster Taming, we have to. I would not be able to live with myself if we don't circle back to Dragon Warrior Monsters, at least just for a little bit.
Yeah.
Because
that's what I wrote down in my death note. Yeah.
On the topic of monster taming games, Pokemon was obviously a part of all of our childhoods. Red and Blue and Yellow came out. We all fell in love. Dragon Warrior Monsters came out around the same time, and nobody fucking played it. I don't know how. I don't know why. I think it may have started with Xell picking it up off the shelf one day, showing it to me. That, to this day, is probably in the top 5 games that I have the most hours in. It was so unbelievably, phenomenally good, ahead of its time. It was virtually better than Pokemon in every single way. But what it didn't have is the Pokemon company behind it with a card game and, pushing the popularity. It had monsters, stats, skills, breeding, taming. It had these like intricate systems. It had like breeding before, like 4 generations before Pokemon introduced breeding. And to this day, Dragon Warrior Monsters Game Boy Color breeding is more complicated and intricate and interesting than Pokemon breeding is current day. So just to give it like that intro, such a unbelievably good monster taming game. If you had any appreciation or love for the Game Boy Color era of Pokemon games, for the love of God, go back and give Dragon Warrior Monsters a play and tell us what you think.
You know what's interesting? So it was in Japan, when it came out, it was the 4th highest selling game of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Dragon Warrior Monsters. It was based on, story was based on kids versions of the characters from Dragon Quest 6.
Yep.
Highly reviewed. A lot of critics were talking about basically saying it was the perfect game to play while waiting for Gold and Silver to come out because it was between the two. It was funny.
Yeah. So, so it was huge in Japan for sure because the Dragon Quest franchise was massive in Japan, but the Dragon Quest franchise didn't make its way to America until like I don't even know, probably like Dragon Quest like 11 or something crazy like that, before it finally like started to kind of break into American mainstream.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it really flew under the radar, which is unfortunate. And I don't want to be the only one talking about it. Xell played it equally as much as me. Like, I mean, what would you say about Dragon Warrior Monsters?
That was the greatest game ever made. It's definitely top 3 for me. It did Pokemon so well. Like, man, it just added everything that I wanted Pokemon to be. It was like a little bit grungier with the graphics, which I really liked, and the breeding was so intricate, and like even the abilities that your monsters learned, you had to sometimes breed them with the correct monster to learn an ability that you would never even know existed. Mm-hmm. And there's no information. You would never know you could get that ability that way. You have to do it through trial and error.
Yeah.
The game was hard. It was hard AF. And I mean, Red Knight still, I'd say, once a year, we probably give it a playthrough.
Yeah.
Let me know next time. I'll emulate it on my phone. I'll play it. I'll be down. I remember the little bit I played of it. I do remember legitimately that little snippet of memory from fucking year 1999. I do remember feeling like, oh man, I think I like this better than Pokemon. Did you know there was a 3DS remake?
Yeah, it's not. It didn't release in the U.S. though.
No.
No, it's Terry's Wonderland, right?
It doesn't say the title, but yeah.
Yeah, it didn't release in the U.S., which is so unfortunate, man. So tragic. I think I had my DS like hacked at some point, and I want to say I had like a English translation, like a fan made English translation of that game, and I'd given it kind of some playthrough. So there's definitely been like subsequent releases of Dragon Quest Monsters. It goes into this what they call the Joker series, where they change up the formula a little bit. I still like them. I don't think they're as good as like the original Dragon Warrior Monsters. The way taming worked in Dragon Warrior Monsters was rather than like Pokeballs, there was a meat system. Meat as in MEAT. So you would attempt to like lure the monsters to liking you, which increased the odds of them joining you after you defeat them in battle, which is a really, really cool system. And
I love shit like that.
The way most of the Dragon Quest series works is a dialogue-based system where like you'll engage, and Shin Megami Tensei does this too. You'll engage in dialogue with monsters, and you'll try to have to navigate based on their personality what you think the answers would be that would make them like you. Dragon Warrior Monsters just really simplified it and was just like, hey, we've got like tiers of meat that are gonna like give more and more affection levels, and all of it's going to do is just feed into like a % chance that is invisible. So like, you see the best monster you've ever seen in your life, you're throwing a bunch of pork chops and ribs at it, and then it doesn't join you, and you're just like, fuck.
Do you want to do something? So while I am a little bit unwilling to engage with more Pokemon stuff in the main line, I was reminded of this by someone in our chat. We're live, by the way. Hi, everybody. There is a new Dragon Warrior Monsters coming out this year in December.
Yeah.
I'm willing to pick it up. I'm willing to play it. It's called Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince, and I'm willing to give it a shake.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
I'd definitely give it a shot. Yeah, kind of to Red's point, every iteration of Dragon Warrior Monsters after the first one, they kind of simplified everything, and it really took away a lot of the love, I think, because it was like all of a sudden you could just very easily catch and breed these like boss monsters that in the first one were like almost impossible to get, and all of a sudden it was like much easier to capture things, and I think they lowered the difficulty to make it more approachable for like, the casual player, which I think really lowered the enticement for me.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll watch the trailer and see. But yeah, if you guys are down, I'll do the same.
I'm 100% gonna play it.
Sweet, yeah, I'll do it. I'll also play the first one. If you guys ever get back into that, I'll do it at the same time. If I just do it solo, I'll fall off. But if I'm getting texts from y'all being like, what'd you get next? Then that's a lot easier for me to engage in those kind of games that I might not be feeling.
If you streamed that game, I would be there for every single stream, and if I couldn't, I'd be there for every episode.
Oh my god.
That would be a
Guaranteed
great
viewer
stream.
next to Nightbot for me?
Yeah. Me and Nightbot will be there, dude.
Clapping every step of the way.
Another thing they do really well too is like when you breed two monsters together, generally it creates a new monster, but it doesn't like give you a hint at what that is. Like you just get a name.
Yeah.
You get a name and you just so if you've never played the game before, every breed is just like this
Interesting.
like this lottery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exhilarating.
It's like
Isn't Shin Megami
Yeah.
Tensei kind of do the same thing? Like
Yes.
they're fusing. It's not breeding. It's fusing, right? I'm interested to try that. If you have any physical copies, can I borrow?
I have 3 of them and I know exactly where they are.
I was talking to Red about Shin Megami Tensei.
Oh.
What are you
no, I don't
talking
have any of
about?
those.
Wait, what are you talking about?
Dragon Warrior monsters.
What do you have them on? What do you mean?
Game Boy Color.
Game Boy Color, yeah.
I don't have a Game Boy Color.
I have 15 of those too, all with the backs missing and
Maybe you're the one that
Duct tape.
stole them when I left for the military.
I would literally do anything for the Nintendo Switch to come out with on their little like Game Boy live service thing, Dragon Warrior Monsters that would have functioning multiplayer. I would do anything. Who do I have to call? What do I have to do? What do I need to wear? I'll wear it.
What do you need to wear? Something skimpy, obviously.
Milkmaid outfit. I got one in my closet.
Worth calling out on that note too. They actually had a multiplayer breeding system also.
That's cool.
Yeah, so you could like breed with your friend. Both of you guys would like. There's different monsters depending on which monster you breed first. So it would like reverse the breed. So you guys would both end up with different things afterwards.
Yeah.
So, really cool.
Super cool shit.
Interesting.
Literally couldn't. I could not rave about that game enough.
Man, well, I will give it a try. I'm never averse to like trying the new things. I might bounce off, I might hate it, but I will try it.
You are a hater.
No, I'm the hater.
No, Red's the hater. No, Red's the hater. I'm gonna scream.
Room
yeah,
full of haters.
That being said, we should probably cut this ep soon. Again, so we don't get yelled at by the people who go. It's been going for an hour and a half. I think that's
It's a chunky one.
pretty nice
Juicy.
one. Not 2 hours long, but a little over the estimate, which it's gonna happen every time probably. But yeah,
Give us an outro, Xell.
Yeah. Well,
Do it.
thanks for watching episode 4, everyone. Hopefully we'll get another one out. We usually edit these in like we're in 4 days or so. So
Yeah.
it'll be on YouTube if you missed parts of it live. And yeah, well, I'm Xell. If you guys want to follow me on any social media, it's XellXP. Please check out all of our Out of Potions social media. Out of Potions podcast or Out of Potions can pretty much find us on anything. Warren Red, do you want to plug any of your socials?
Go ahead.
yeah. I mean, I'm on a couple things, just formerly Scott or soon to be Kref on a bunch of things, or just Warren Springer. If you just look up Warren Springer, you'll find me. I don't do much online nowadays, but maybe.
Always dabble a little bit here and there in streaming. You can find me at RedWorld or RedWorld333. I'm on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, X, Threads, that thing now. Anywhere you find content, you might find me.
Oh my God, OnlyFans.
Only toes.
Only toes.
If the price is
Alright,
right.
With that being said, I'm gonna cut this, and I'm gonna go away and never talk to you guys again.
Yeah, I don't like any of you. See ya.
Fuck.
It wasn't fun. Bye.
Bye.